Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2026 K-State Garden Hour webinar series. We're so glad you're here. This webinar series started in 2020 and has been a collaboration of the entire K-State Horticulture Extension team. Since the start of the program, we have reached over 113,000 gardeners just like you. We are pleased to continue offering the K-State Garden Hour series for free. If you have enjoyed these educational webinars, please consider making a tax-deductible donation to support this program. The link to donate can be found in the chat or on our K-State Garden Hour website. This webinar is hosted by K-State Extension. My name is Brooke Oldie, and I am the horticulture agent in the River Valley District, which covers Clay, Cloud, Washington, and Republic counties. Everyone involved in the development of this series is an extension professional for K-State. Most of us have background in horticultural education or a related discipline, but most of all, we each have a love for educating and sharing important gardening topics. I personally enjoy this series. I've only been an agent since March, and I feel like it's really a broad range of topics, and I think there's something for everybody, whether you've been a gardener your whole life or you're just getting started. I think there's a lot to learn. So before we get started, we do have a few housekeeping notes. Please use the Q&A feature for questions related to the presentation. This is where we'll look for questions at the end of the webinar during the Q&A session. You should see a button along the bottom tab that says Q&A. Just click on that and you'll be able to enter your question. Today's webinar will be recorded and we will post it to our K-State Garden Hour website. We typically upload additional resources related to each topic as well. If we share links through the chat, we will also link them on the website as well. Our website is also where you'll have access to previous Garden Hour topics and upcoming topics in the series. Our moderators today are Abby and Jessica, and they will be sharing info through the chat during the presentation. They'll also help us facilitate that Q&A portion of the webinar. So today's topic is local food gardening projects in Kansas, and I'm pleased to introduce, we have several speakers today from all over the state, some of our horticulture agents that are gonna tell you a little bit about those food projects that we have. So please give us a few moments while we transition and share the presentation slides.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lane Weens, and I'm the Horticulture Extension Agent here in Shawnee County, so I help out in Topeka, Kansas. And yes, like Brooke said, a handful of us are going to talk about some gardening projects that are happening in our various extension units. So, we don't do this a lot, but we did kind of tie this one together with last month's Garden Hour. Anthony did a great job talking about how extension is addressing food insecurity. These are just some of the main takeaways that I took from that webinar is that home and community gardens are a part of a local food system. Whether you're keeping the produce and using it for your family or you're donating it to a food pantry, all of that is an important part of the food system. Working with this topic does hit on all of the critical issues that K-State Extension is focusing on. So water and natural resources, global food systems, community vitality, developing tomorrow's leaders. And of course, I can't think of the fifth one, but we do talk about all five of them. And there's a lot of moving pieces that could have significant impacts on a local food system. So if we don't have enough local production, we have to bring in food from further away, which means it's probably going to be more expensive. It might be more difficult to get access to, and there might not be as many opportunities. And something else is that food gardening projects are happening all around the state, and we really wanted to highlight a handful of examples of this from across the great state of Kansas. So 5 of us are going to take turns talking about different food gardening projects that are happening in our counties. So with that, we'll start in the far east side of the state with Dylan from Wyandotte County.
Hi, everybody. How's it going? As Lane mentioned, I am the horticulture agent for Wyandotte County. Um, So we have a couple of different projects going on within our master gardeners over here, but I wanted to highlight this one today. This is the Turner Community Garden. This is probably one of our biggest food producing projects that we have going on right now, and in a lot of different ways. So I was going to walk through some of those and show you guys some of the cool projects that we have going on in this particular plot. And go ahead to the next slide. All right, so just to give you a little bit of history about this area, it's located in the Turner neighborhood, the red dot right there in the middle. As you can see, it's located just south of the Kansas River and the BNSF Railroad Switchyard. It's a very industrial area, very hardworking community, very blue collar community. But two of our current master gardeners, Calvin Hoover and Jim Jersulik, started this back in 2010, mostly as a means to kind of get some engagement opportunities for the seniors in the area where they could get together, commune, get outdoors, and as a space to grow. They also were able to kind of recognize that the community they were living in was turning into a bit of a food desert, with a lack of grocery stores in easy walking distance, and a little bit of lack of space for those residents to be able to garden and grow some of their own things. So they were able to take this land that was it is still owned by the railroad, actually. They rent it to us for about $1 a month, which is pretty generous. And so it's owned by the railroad. Previously was an illegal dumping ground mixed in with a bunch of overgrowth and scrub brush, all kinds of stuff. So they were able to take that space, and through a lot of hard work, they were able to transform the Turner Community Garden into what it is today, which is about a 4 acres worth of gardening plots, season extending structures like greenhouses, high tunnels, a picnic area, a shady grove, an indoor facility with a functional kitchen facility and meeting rooms for all kinds of different community projects. Go ahead to the next one. So our vegetable plots, there's several different spots for these. Like I said, we have some high tunnels where we cultivate tomatoes, peppers, things of that nature. And they're tended mostly by community members, like it says, master gardeners, garden volunteers, and some of the things that we grow in here, peppers, tomatoes, eggplants, cucumbers, melons, okra, squash, just to name a few. And in the pictures on the right and the left, you can actually see some of the other structures, the brown or the greenhouse structure, and to the left of that is also a beehive area. So we do have pollinators that they raise there as well. Um, and it's just one of those places where community members can come in, they can kind of they can have a place where they can grow if they might be lacking that space on their own property. So we'll go ahead to the next one. This is a really cool spot within the Turner Community Gardens. This was the original Master Gardener project that kind of got things started to kind of where we are today. This is the aquaponics project. This is where we have, if you're not familiar with aquaponics, what's essentially going on here, it's a hydroponic setup where the plants are being grown in water with growing media as a mix of clay pebbles, styrofoam blocks to help support the plants with their roots being completely in water. And the black tank that you can see is actually filled with fish. The fish are fed, and thus then their waste is then recycled into a usable fertilizer for the plants. And so that gives us another interesting way to grow, kind of a way to educate people about different growth medias. And the best part is at the end of the season, we run from about May to about mid-October when the weather starts to dip again. There's a fish fry at the end of that. So two different ways that we can kind of make use of that growing space and different things. The next one is going to be our Giving Grove Orchard. If you're not familiar with the Giving Grove Orchard project, it's an awesome network of folks nationwide that are particularly interested in helping urban areas install fruit trees, vines, things like that. So our Giving Grove Orchard is mainly comprised of pears, apples, some peach trees that we're trying to get off the ground again. Approximately 20 trees, Asian and Euro pear varieties, things that include Shinseke, Shinko, Churro, Korean Giant, and then our European varieties, Potomac, Harrow Delight, Sunrise, just to name a few. And this has been a great tool for being able to, one, get folks some more access to fresh fruits and vegetables, and as well as education for kind of showing people how you maintain your own fruit trees, whether it be pruning, pest control, pest scouting, a couple of different things that we can bring to the community there. I think the one here featured, that looks like one of the Harrow Delights, if I'm not wrong. And then to the right here, we have one of our enterprise apples. And something we're moving towards currently right now is an organic pest management model. And if you know about pest management for fruit trees and things like that, you might be saying, well, you're crazy. And that might be a little bit true. But in the next slide, I'll kind of explain why that's so important. Go to the next one. And that's because of our pollinator habitats that we're maintaining. In the beginning, I kind of mentioned that this sits on only about 4 acres. And this pollinator area here in the front, it only sits maybe about 60 to 80 yards away from the orchard. So sprays and things like that can be detrimental to those. So it's something we're trying to move further towards so that we can have the environment in a more harmonious way and protect those pollinators that are so important to the vegetables and the fruit that we're growing. Um, Other than that, it also ups our biodiversity. Some of the pollinators, the native pollinators we're trying to implement. You see coneflowers here. We have some good black-eyed Susans, sunflowers. And I think that really encapsulates what they're doing down at the Turner, growing things in a harmonious manner and open to the public so that community members can kind of see how to grow things, how they can become involved, and just a lot of good stuff going on down there. So that is all I have for the Turner Community Gardens, and thank you so much.
All right. Now back to me. So again, Lane Weens, Shawnee County Horticulture Agent. I have a couple projects that I want to highlight today. So the first is our demonstration vegetable and community garden, which is run by the Shawnee County Extension Master Gardeners. And then a cool project that I'm involved with, which is the Southside Filling Station Community Garden, which is run by the Working Men of Christ. So, first of all, the Demonstration Vegetable and Community Garden is a partnership between K-State Shawnee County and CRC, which is Community Resources Council. They've been around for about 100 years, and over that time period, they're all about connecting people with resources they need. So they started off doing toy and clothes drives way back in the day, and that's morphed into what they do now. So in 2013, they entered into a partnership with the 501 school district, which is all of the Topeka schools, taking over the lease for elementary schools that the district isn't using anymore, which CRC turns into incubator space for local nonprofits that are working specifically in those neighborhoods for the betterment of those neighborhoods. So the vegetable garden is at the CRC Care Center at Stout, and if you're from Topeka, it's about 23rd and College, right south of Washburn. This is kind of a Google Map overlay of what that whole space looked like. So my program assistant and I, Jennifer, and our vegetable garden committee chairs met with Mary Thomas, who is the CEO of CRC. In June, July of summer of 2024, we told her, hey, we're looking to move our vegetable garden. And she says, great, I have this whole giant several acres schoolyard. You guys can have the whole thing if you want it. And that is a lot of space, especially as we're trying to make sure that we have the volunteer workforce to be able to get that garden space up and running and also keep it growing. So the space we ended up taking over is just this little section up over here, couple thousand square feet. So once we got our documentation and MOUs and everything done, we started working with the partners. One of our local farm and home store owners very graciously came out and sprayed the Bermuda for us, which if you're a gardener, you know that is like the bane of your existence, which is Bermuda grass. We have a storage container that we needed to move. We had a garden shed that needed moved, so we had partners help us with that. We also had a local a local guy bring in a couple dump trucks full of topsoil and several truckfuls of mulch that we used to fill in the paths and mulch over the garden. So that committee worked their butt off from October to June to get that garden up and running and looking great. And we actually had a ribbon cutting for it in June of 2025, had county commissioners and invited the partners as a way to thank them for their help and all. It was a great event. So they had a good goal of getting 500 pounds of produce donated to to local food pantries in their first year, and they ended up growing almost 670 pounds. This pie chart over here just gives an overlay of what percent of that 668 pounds we donated. So tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, and eggplant are making up the lion's share of that. And they're already up to 200 pounds donated in 26. So we're having a great production season so far this year. We still have tomatoes that need to go, potatoes, corn, all sorts of other summer crops. Here in Shawnee County, four organizations receive our donations. So Doorstep, Bod's Feeding Bods, which is the food pantry on the Washburn University campus, Topeka Rescue Mission, and Eye Care. And something that I think we're doing that's a really great idea, especially with some things like eggplant that some people may or may not know what to do with it if they pick it out at the food pantry. We've started including recipes for how to utilize eggplant or corn or beans into your everyday diet so it's not just sitting on the shelf. Great, what do I do with this thing? The garden's open every Saturday through the growing season starting at 9. So please feel free to stop by, ask the master gardeners questions. They do a great job of working down there in that space. And the other garden that I want to highlight is the Southside Filling Station Community Garden. So this is another partnership that we've entered into with Scent, which is a local organization based out of the Highcrest neighborhood, which there's a lot of economic issues happening in Highcrest, and they try to provide wraparound support for members of that community. So there's the food pantry, there's mental health support, there's help getting them workforce development programs. There's even a doctor's office there. So they try and do a lot. This project was funded by a grant through Hunger Free Kansas. That was one that our FNAP nutrition agent, Sofia Diaz Bueso, her and her staff got that grant. So I come in as the horticulture help. So this is a workforce development program for formerly incarcerated individuals. So my job is to train them, give them skills that they can take and apply uh, through the workforce, give them something they can do to reinvent themselves after that happened. So again, my piece of this is mostly the education. So we're running through a wide variety of garden skills, soil testing and management, watering practices, mulching and composting, planting times and harvest times, and all sorts of other things. So actually in this picture, me and the guys, we are doing some soil texture by feel. And if you don't know soil texture, there's a lot that goes into watering and fertilizing and what plants do well based on your soil texture. So we're doing that experiment. Basically, you just take a little mound of soil, get it wet so it's like Play-Doh. And there's some things that you can do to it that help you tell what the texture of that soil is. So it's been a lot of fun. They've been really receptive and they're learning a lot, and several of them have actually gone on to other full-time employment opportunities. So it's great to see the things that we're teaching them and then moving on to other things. That said, this is a workforce development, but we're also growing produce for the Southside Filling Station. So we harvested 200 pounds of cole crops and onions. So here's some of the guys and some cauliflower that we harvested. Recently, the last time we went out there, we harvested potatoes. We're going to get ready to get a fall crop of potatoes, hopefully get some fingerlings up to the pantry and get some other things up there. So it's been a great project to work with, and I think it's making an impact on the guys that we're working with here. All right. Now we'll move on to Calla Edwards from Butler County.
Hello, everyone. So I am in Butler County, and I wanted to talk about two of our main projects that we have currently. Our first is a demonstration garden that we have in partnership with the Augusta Community Garden. And that particular garden is located in Augusta, Kansas. You can see the picture of it kind of on the screen as well. And then our other garden is the Victory Garden that we do with the Butler County Historical Society in their oil museum in their oil boomtown. Those are our two main gardens. We are working with our local the El Dorado Correctional Facility to start a garden there with the prisoners, similar to a project that's going to be talked about by one of our later presenters. But these are the two main ones that we have going on right now. Next slide. So our first garden is our longest running partnership. It started in 2015 in partnership with the Augusta Community Garden, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. This is our longest running project, but it's our newest location. So about 3 years ago, they moved the community garden from city property and they moved it to what had been the Robinson Elementary, which they turned into a community center. And so it's our oldest running, but our newest location, which the move has been wonderful for this particular garden. The previous location had been a parking lot. And so even though we used raised beds, production was really low at that garden just because the soil compaction, there's a lot of rocks and gravel, so it didn't do very well at its original location. At our new location, we have 4 main garden beds and then an additional pollinator plot as well. And so every year we plant 2 of the garden beds to different vegetables, and then the other 2 are left to rest. This year we're planting one to a clover cover crop this fall. Our goal is to ultimately move this particular garden location to a no-till type situation. But as we were told earlier, or Lane talked about earlier, this area has Bermuda grass, and so that has been a little bit the bane of our existence. At this particular garden, we have historically done K-State's vegetable variety trials. This year, we have started our own tomato variety trials. One of the projects that I think Anthony mentioned last month was our seed libraries that we do across the county. And so this year, our variety trials are the tomato varieties that you can find in our seed libraries, so people know which ones work well. It also helps me figure out what vegetable varieties we should purchase to put in our seed libraries or what ones we should not purchase. We also are kind of doing some pepper trials, but the tomatoes is the main one. One of the projects that we have also done at this particular garden is our Three Sisters demonstration. We did that the first year that the garden was in operation to kind of show some of the different gardening techniques. We also have a pollinator plot at this particular location. We're looking at doing a beehive, and then this year we planted some native fruit and nut tree bushes and hope to eventually expand that orchard area to showcase some of the native fruit trees, native fruit varieties that people can grow that do well. Just because people think of, peaches and pears and things, and sometimes in South Central Kansas, those don't do very well. I know my peach tree has froze the last couple years. All of the produce from this particular garden is donated to the Augusta Community Caring Center. If we overrun the Caring Center, then we donate additional produce to the Senior Center. In 2024, with this particular garden, the first year we had it, they donated just over 1,300 pounds of produce. Last year, it was closer to 600. It's hard to see in the picture, though, but the gardens we planted last year were in a lower lying area. And this particular garden did have about 8 inches of rain in an 8-hour period. So our garden struggled a little bit last year. So far this year, we're close to 100 pounds of produce being donated, and the tomatoes have finally gotten started going, so I expect that total to go up pretty soon. Next slide, please. Our most recent partnership is with the Butler County Historical Society. We took over this little location. They call it the Victory Garden. It is in the oil boom town. And so at this garden, we demonstrate the vegetables and the vegetable varieties that would have been grown in a 1917 era Victory Garden, which is the era that this oil boom town was based on. El Dorado, Butler County is a really big oil location. And so we are trying to demonstrate some of the historical gardening practices while also donating produce to the El Dorado Senior Center. In future, we plan to add some additional garden and additional gardening space, but we currently are working with the Victory Garden. It is not a very productive space. You can see all the trees in the background. What you can't see is on the left side of that picture, there is a building about 10 feet from the garden. So it really only gets sun about 3 to 4, maybe 5 hours of the day. So it does okay, but it's not one of our biggest producing gardens. It's more for knowledge and education. And with that, I believe we are off to Pam Paulson in Reno County.
Okay. All righty. Well, we have a number of food plots that we work with in Reno County. At our extension office, we've got a small fruit, native fruit, herbal tea, and beehives at our office. At our demonstration garden, our master gardeners have raised vegetable beds and grapes and herbs at the Hutchinson Community College campus. And we also have a youth garden at the Hutchinson YMCA that our master gardeners grow vegetables and flowers with. But the one I wanted to highlight is our Garden for Good program. It's a project that our master gardeners partner with the Hutchinson Community or the Hutchinson Correctional Facility East Unit in Hutchinson. It's a 2-acre garden that you can see here on the kind of the lower left corner of this picture. It was started in 2011 by 3 residents who asked the deputy warden if they could start a garden so they could have some fresh produce instead of the industrial food that they were served in the cafeteria. She gave them permission, but told them they had to plan, fund, maintain the gardens totally themselves. And so they were up for doing this, but they went back to her and said, none of us know how to garden. Luckily, the deputy warden's husband happened to be one of our master gardener volunteers, and that is how this partnership got started. So currently we have about 35 men in the program. This is a medium security facility. And so each winter they plan their garden layout, they order their seeds, deciding which vegetables are going to grow. And then in the spring, they have a greenhouse that they have access to, which allows them to start the majority of their seeds for this garden. Some of the seedlings they raise are sold to other staff at the facility, and they've also provided seedlings for the prison program at the Winfield Correctional Facility. In the spring, they work the garden, lay out irrigation and plastic mulch in about a 1.5 acre area that they call their community garden. And when that garden first started in 2011 and 2012, they only had 1 spigot for the whole area. They would fill 55-gallon drums full of water and then dip watering cans in there and water that whole area with just those watering cans. And if you remember 2011 and 2012, that's when it was brutally hot for record number of days. And still to this day, it amazes me that they kept that garden going. I know I gave up that year. I can't imagine watering that with just watering cans. But since then, from sales of produce and such, they are able to buy plastic mulch and drip irrigation for the whole garden area now. But the original intention for the garden was to grow fresh produce for their own use, but 2 acres, 1.5 acres produces a lot of vegetables, much more than they could consume themselves. So they started to donate this excess produce to the soup kitchen and the food bank. And that soon became their main purpose for the garden, that donating to others and serving others really fulfilled and satisfied the gardeners, and this motivated them to create a board of directors, develop bylaws, and become a 501c3 not-for-profit organization. So as they harvest the produce, they sort, clean, weigh, and package it. And then volunteers will then deliver the produce each week to area organizations, including our local soup kitchen, a number of food banks throughout Reno County, and area low-income and senior housing facilities. Produce is also sold to other residents and staff at the facility for $1 a pound, and those funds go back into the program to support the garden. But because the garden is in a correctional facility, the gardeners are limited in any kind of pest control that they can use. So instead, they get very creative, and they will grow flowers to attract pollinators and other beneficial insects that will feed on insect pests. Members that are in the wood shop will build bird houses, so the birds will feed off of some of those insect pests. They make use of mulches and drip irrigation to reduce diseases on the plants. And they also compost both garden waste and food scraps from the cafeteria, and will plant cover crops each year to enrich the soil. So each garden member also gets to have their own garden plot in about a half-acre area, and they call this the square foot garden. And it's in these individual gardens where they can grow their own produce of their choice for themselves, and then they will also share that with family members who come to visit them in the facility. From these gardens, many of the men also enter their own produce in the Reno County and Kansas State fairs, and they've often won top prizes with their entries. And I really enjoy these plots because they're 14 by 14 foot plots, but the guys' individual personalities really come out in their individual gardens. So each year, their board of directors will select 10 new garden members. It's an application process from other residents in the facilities. Garden members must not have any disciplinary issues if they want to participate in the program. New members must also attend weekly classes taught by our Reno County Extension Master Gardeners from February through November. And then the class lessons are based on the Kansas Master Gardener curriculum. At the end of the year, we have a graduation ceremony, and each of the new class members receive a Master Gardener certificate. So every year, the gardeners set a growing goal of about 40 pounds of produce, and about 75% of that is donated. Excess funds from the produce sales during the year are given out as monetary donations to a number of these organizations, and they hand those out. They invite all these organizations to their graduation ceremony, and they hand out checks to each of those organizations at the graduation. And they also sponsor a Christmas meal for each of the residents at one of our local senior facilities. So being a part of this program, the men not only learn to garden, but they learn the patience that comes with being a gardener. They learn to mentor and support each other and work with other people. And they learn the satisfaction of providing fresh, healthy food to those in need and serving others that they will never meet. And the Garden for Good program has been incredibly rewarding for all of these men, as well as the organizations they serve, but me and our master gardeners as well. Okay, and that brings us to Scott Eckert in Harvey County.
Okay, we started the Giving Garden in 1999. Actually, the talk with a local organization called Peace Connections and myself. We started this. Hold on just a second.
I think you just muted yourself, Scott.
I am not doing anything. It's doing it itself. Okay, how's that? This is the Giving Garden, and this is the original location when we started in '99. And the partnership we have with a local organization called Peace Connections and I started this venture here. We were looking for a vacant city lot to start a community garden, and we ended up on a triangular shaped piece of ground by the railroad that had been it had foundations under the soil. It had a lot of debris. We found old toy guns and old porcelain sinks and things like this. And so we found lots of things as we were tilling it. But so in 99, we started this. It got going really well in 2000, 2001. First year we harvested 750 pounds. And all this goes to Salvation Army. They have a unique, pretty good distribution system. And so they're able to get the produce out after we weigh it. Okay. This slide is the next location where we moved it during COVID. Not a lot else going on during COVID. So I got on and started this garden area here. It was donated for us to use by St. Matthew's Church in Newton, and it's not quite an acre of ground. So we were able to rotate. Go ahead and next slide. We're able to rotate vegetables, melons with cover crops like soybeans, buckwheat, rye, wheat, and things like that. Some of the tillage radishes, things like that, and that's really improved it quite a bit. But so, go ahead, next slide. Our target audience for this garden, basically, it's gardeners, disabled, and people in need of food, and we would also do the test flowers or test tomatoes from K-State when they were doing the program, but we did test flowers as well. It's a horticulture therapy site, feeding people in the county and giving educational programs like fall gardening, spring vegetables, and the Old Prairie Star Flower program. The demonstrations and lectures, all parts of the produce included in that we donate out. So go ahead and next slide. All right. Annually, they tell me about 4,000 benefit from the produce harvested. So we're very proud of that. And since we've been doing this for 27 years, it's a long going project for our county. All right, next slide. All right, just a few pictures here. This is what we aspire to accomplish every year, is get everything planted and mulched before the rains hit and bring on the crabgrass and the pigweed and things like that. We're not always very successful, but this year we were. These are sweet potatoes. All right, next slide. And this is a picture back from our old spot, but this is onions. I was kind of showing off the onions here because they did very well that year, and we're pretty good at growing softball size candy onions. So kind of proud of that. All right, next. We do a nice job of growing sweet potatoes. One thing about sweet potatoes is there aren't many pests of these guys, so we're enjoying that. We've got a good climate in Kansas for that. So, and we do utilize the John Pear Center's, horticulture centers, organic sweet potato slips, and to grow those potatoes. So, all right, next. All right, our demonstration areas include the tomato and pepper trials, and we were doing a tomato tasting table at the Harvey County Fair, kind of like a wine tasting type of thing. We did have Prairie Star demonstration plots. We did no-till vegetables for several years. Now we're kind of into the cover crops, and since we have space, we are putting in fruit plants. So we've got some fruit trees going, and we're still working on that. And we have some bush fruits growing as well. All right, next. All right, this is everybody knows what this is. It's a coxcomb celosia. This is an early October freeze or early October sleet several years ago, and I just thought this was a unique picture. You don't see a nice flower with sleet all over it, so that's why I put it in the slideshow. All right, next. Okay, we've done a lot of after-school programs over the years. A lot of latchkey, just grade school kids coming in and helping us grow things and learn about growing vegetables. All right, next. I do utilize the plants we grow at the garden for horticulture judging practice for 4-H. And next. Okay, we have had a lot of middle school programs there. We've had Spanish students come out. I mentioned latchkey kids. Prairie View is a rehab facility. And I already mentioned public programs like Prairie Star Flowers, Gardening 101, those things. All right, next. All right, I like to brag about our organic matter. In 2000, we had about 1%. And in that time, we added straw, sawdust, a lot of grass clippings. Now we're in that 6.8 range. We've lowered pH, which, we're high in pH. So some things go better when your pH is below 7. And with the new garden area now is about 5% organic matter where we are now. So we're still growing that organic matter. All right, next. Okay, I have to mention who helps us because it's not just the Harvey County Extension Office and the Master Gardener Program, but local garden centers. The city of Newton put in a meter for us at the original spot, a water meter. The Parks Department was very helpful. Bumper to bumper equipment rental let me use a tractor with a nice tiller on the back, so I got to get the tractor the tractor operating out of my system for a year. Each time I used it, we had 4-H groups come, church groups, and of course the Harvey County Master Gardeners. Next. Just some pictures of Bethel College students and 4-H kids helping us put out pathways and planting some things in the garden. All right, next. All right, we weigh those produce at Salvation Army, then they distribute it. We do keep track. The first year I mentioned we had 750 pounds. Our best year, 7,200 pounds. And this year, we don't know yet. So we will have a harvest number probably by November. All right. Just some flower trial pictures. We do really well with the flowers, it seems like. Some of the ladies in our Master Gardener group really take to the flower trial area and really do an amazing job with that. Next. All right, going back, we did move. We got an opportunity. The local church was going to let us use a garden location that they had started that was abandoned, and they really wanted somebody to take it on. So during COVID, I said yes, and we moved. So it's been a good move for us. Better soil, better drainage, and the water is free. So we really can't beat that. So, all right, next. All right, cover crops. I'm really into this cover crop thing, and we have on the left is wheat from our ag agent's wheat plot trial that he does every year, and on the right we have some onions and some potatoes growing, and the green in between is some seeds that got away from me. Those are tillage radishes, so I just let them grow. All right, next. Few more pictures of flower trials. Fantastic looking annual flowers. Not yet released, at least for this year. This was a couple years ago, but still makes the place look really good. Next. All right, and of course you can't have a garden without weeds. I had a reporter come out and wanted to do a story on the garden. In March, which is not a great time to do a story on a vegetable garden, but Um, we had some plastic down, experimenting with that, and we had a fantastic row of henbit, and just a magnificent row of henbit. And we got a picture. He put this picture in the paper, so I had to share it with all of you today. So 27 years, we've had 86,000 pounds in that time, and we're still going. So a lot of people benefiting from it. And we did get a state award, just before COVID. And so the Search for Excellence was an award we got back in 2016. And I believe that's my last slide.
All right. Jessica, is there any questions for us in the chat?
Oh, there are so many good questions. Okay. One of the first questions I think occurred during your speaking spot, Lane, which was, what are some of the most sought after skills when you teach workforce development in your garden?
Ooh, that's not something I really looked at, but kind of like Pam, I do try and use the Master Gardener training as a framework. There's just so much information through that program. And something I really try and hit home with the guys is how interconnected everything is. So your soil impacts your fertility and water management, which can impact your pest and disease populations, which might tell you how much more or less you have to water, fertilize. A self-repeating cycle and I would say the watering is probably going to be a pretty big one. A lot of times in the big production greenhouses, there's a decent amount of training that goes into getting handed the water wand before you can take over watering an area. There's a lot of labor and cost that can go into watering and maintaining a crop like that. So the interconnectedness of things and watering is probably the two big ones, I would say.
Oh, that's interesting. That actually leads into our next question really well here. I think this could be answered by anyone, but it's a good one. Can you please share the water sources that you're used for some of these featured gardens? It can be a real challenge to find water or source it for community garden sites.
So we kind of just want to go around the horn and talk about that. So for us, we use city water. We have to run a hose reel to the building. So yeah, our demonstration vegetable garden runs off city water. And then the scent project is also at another CRC site. So they also run off city water.
We started our garden in Newton with the city put a water meter in, and the Peace Connections organization paid for that city water each month during the year. And then when we moved to our new location, they had a well in place, and the church covered the electricity for that. So we really haven't had to come out or come up with funds for water. But I tell you, if you go to do a community garden, make sure you have a water source. It will not work without it.
For the demonstration garden we have in Augusta, the original location was owned by the city, and the city put a hydrant in for the community garden. Our current location, there are spigots on the side of the building. And so our master gardeners have a key to turn the spigot on, and that's where we get water. They're looking at either connecting to the irrigation system or putting in a hydrant so we don't have to pull a hose quite as far in that location. But that is a work in progress. And the Victory Garden, the Historical Society has hydrants there, and they provide the water. The city has paid for the water for both of the Augusta community gardens, and the school currently pays for the water for that one.
Years ago, when we held a series of community garden workshops, one of the things, since water is usually a limiting factor and can be expensive, one of the things we suggested was work with the city and maybe ask that they waive the cost of installing a water meter, even if, if you can find sponsors for the cost of the water, often just that initial installation of a water meter can be pretty inhibiting. So if the city will waive that cost, that's a good way to get started.
At Turner, right now we're currently hooked up to municipal water, but for a lot of the plots, it's just hand watering right now mostly. But actually, when we were discussing, kind of about this presentation and some of the things we had discussed, continuing to put drip irrigation in, it's something that could reduce our water needs quite a bit, and it's something we're actively working on to install more of and show people kind of how you can install drip and sort of the benefits behind that. But right now, just municipal water, hand watering, and ongoing drip irrigation being added.
And I did see there was a couple other questions on water sources. Sorry to jump ahead of you, Jessica, but there is a good garden hour on knowing your water sources from a couple years ago. So definitely be sure to go back and watch that one. There's lots of great information. It was from Jay Harris, who's our hort agent out in Hayes. And Western Kansas doesn't get a lot of water, so they do a lot of water efficient gardening and landscaping out there. So lots of great information.
Absolutely. I'll try to drop those into the Q&A, the links for those. And then the next question is for Scott. Can you explain your cover crop rotation or your reasonings behind it?
Well, one, in the wintertime, we don't want to, or actually any time of year, you have water running on, or if you get 8 inches of rain, or like one year we had 13 inches of rain, you get flooding, but that web of roots, and the ability, the web of roots, the soil web, all those things that break down organic matter and improve soil. The cover crops just add to that, and you have an erosion prevention there, but it's also it of course keeps soil in place, adds organic matter over time. If you get a legume in there like soybeans, you're going to have the nitrogen fixing, taking atmospheric nitrogen, putting it in the soil. I forgot to mention winter field peas grew extremely well in there last year. Over the winter, they were green all winter long. And so it's not I'm not doing a scientific research thing with that. If I have a gap or a vacant area, I will put some kind of organic matter or some kind of cover crop that will grow on that particular time of year. And the hardest one actually to get going has been the kale. We've got a kale cover. Haven't been very successful with that, but we've done well with peas and soybeans and wheat, especially Kansas, and we did some rye. And the but the method to my madness, it's basically just organic matter and nitrogen, and I try to put a legume where we're going to have the garden, like the majority of the garden is going to be in a legume the year before we plant the next crop the next year. So what I'm looking at this year for next year is I've got soybeans put in, just seeded them for tomatoes and peppers next year. So that's it's not a real organized plan, but in my head, it's what I'm trying. It's kind of fun. It's fun to see. You can see buckwheat. Gosh, it'll flower in a month. It's very quick growing, and it's just fun to watch.
Absolutely. Thanks, Scott. I think this next question could be answered by any of the hosts. Like, what is your setup for washing and packing up vegetables for donations?
I can answer that real quick. If they need washed, we wash them. And then we let them dry and we put them in. Dillon's has donated a box or case of their grocery bags, and we take those, we use those to take them. It's easier to carry them into Salvation Army, the way Salvation Army here is kind of set up. So we take them in that way. Most of the time, we throw those bags away. I know it's not good. It's not good recycling, but it's better. It's more convenient for us to do it that way. So we don't reuse bags or buckets. We just use those Dillon sacks, and it makes it an easier thing.
At the Garden for Good, our guys have long tables that just have a wire mesh screen top. And so they will spread the vegetables out on there so they can rinse them off. For food safety issues, that's a lot better than soaking vegetables. So if there's any disease issues on the dirt, they don't get absorbed back into the vegetable. But then they can also just dry on those tables, and then they bring them into a room at the facility that's air conditioned. Much of the facility is not air conditioned, but this room is. And then they're just packed in plastic tubs that they bring out to wherever they're donating, and they drop them off and then bring the tubs back in.
Okay, thank you guys. The next question is, do any of these featured gardens harvest rainwater or utilize rain barrels?
So our Victory Garden does have 2 rain barrels that come off of one of the little houses that are next to it. And we do utilize that water sometimes. So kind of, we've talked about doing rain barrels, or they'd have to be much bigger because of the size of the school roof. But we just haven't figured out a good way to collect water at our community garden, just the sheer amount of water that would come off the roof. Now, the water that comes off the roof does drain down and sub-irrigate some of those fields because of where it collects, but we don't specifically collect water there.
So for both of the gardens that I work with, actually, that is something that we are looking at putting in, is some kind of water harvesting. I know, especially with the master gardeners, we have that garden shed back there. There's not a huge space, but any supplemental water that we wouldn't have to haul from 50, 75, 100 foot away from the spigot will be really helpful in helping us take care of those crops.
Okay, great. Our final question in the chat is for raised beds. Are cover crops really necessary? What is your guys' opinion on that?
I guess I can touch a little on this one because our Augusta Community Garden in its original location did use raised beds. And I would say cover crops are useful no matter if you're growing in the garden or if you're growing in the ground. Anything that adds organic material to your garden is going to be helpful at some point in time.
Yeah, I would just echo what Cal has said. It is an extra cost, unless maybe you can find some wheat somewhere. Wheat's often spilled, and you can find it along the railroad, which we have in Newton, and I've done that many times. But yeah, it's always a good thing to add organic matter, one way or another.
Thank you so much. I don't see any more questions in the Q&A.
All right. Well, thank you all again for attending with us today. Sorry about the echoing earlier. I hope it's better now. We just wanted to say we typically have more questions than we have time for, but I think we got them all covered today. But feel free to reach out to your local extension agent if you do have any further questions. And as we mentioned before, please consider donating to help us continue the garden hour. So we're so glad you could be here today. And just a reminder, this session was recorded and will be posted on the website by tomorrow afternoon. After this webinar ends, you will receive a survey, and we would greatly appreciate your feedback. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us at gardenhour@ksu.edu. And thank you again. We hope you continue to tune in with us each month and have a great week.